Hello. How is everyone tonight? And I'm happy to be here. Uh, well, I am live, but if you are not, then I imagine that you will be watching this very soon. I'm going to cover a few things about what's been going on this year. You know, this year went by pretty fast, and we are in the fourth quarter of this year. I like to think of basketball, American basketball, because there are four quarters, and the fourth quarter is like the big deal, right? If a team is behind by 20 points, this is the quarter that makes the difference. This is when they can, turn things around and possibly win the game. So we are in the fourth quarter of 2022. And we have 3 months left. We have this month, October, and November, December, and next year, and we start all over again. I want to talk about what's been going on, what's been happening, uh, regarding the U.S. and how it affects, a person like me who lives abroad, but how it affects other people, specifically the people who are still living in the USA. I'm going to go through several reports and articles. I will leave links in the video description as I will not be covering them in its entirety, but I will cover some bits of each one. So one thing I've been noticing is the inflation, of course. I've talked about this in previous videos. You're welcome to check out those videos. They are a bit shorter when I talk specifically about inflation, but that has been an ongoing trend this year, and it's been getting worse and worse. And I have found this report by the National Low Income Housing Coalition. They publish a report every year regarding the income, how much a person needs to earn to be able to have an apartment in the USA or have any type of rental house. So let's take a look at that. I'm going to be reading from the report, brief bits, but again, you can read the rest in its entirety, as I will put the link in the description. So here it says the report, the National Low Income Housing Coalition report, their housing wage is an estimate of the hourly wage full-time workers must earn to afford a rental home um, at the HUD fair market rent without spending more than 30% of their incomes. I'll add a comment here. 30% of your income in rent is ideal, but unfortunately, many people are often spending 35 to 40%, and some people even more. So, uh, but the fair market rent, the 30% number, that's ideal, but that's not what most people are paying. They're paying much more of their income in rent. Continuing. Fair market rents are estimates of what a person moving today can expect to pay for a modestly uh, priced rental. The 2022 national housing wage is almost $26 an hour for a modest two-bedroom rental and 21.25 an hour for a modest one bedroom rental. Just think about that, specifically about the one bedroom. The one bedroom rental, most people are not earning $21.25. There are there are, I mean, there are anomalies, like California. I think the minimum wage there is $15 an hour. So maybe in some jobs, earning $21 is more realistic. But okay, you're getting paid $21, but you know, how much are one bedroom rentals in that specific area? That's another question. Okay, continuing. The federal minimum wage of 7.25 per hour falls well short of both the two-bedroom and one-bedroom national housing wages. The two-bedroom housing wage is over 3.5 times greater than the federal minimum wage. Because the federal minimum wage does not rise automatically with inflation, it is worth considerably less today than in recent decades. If the minimum wage increased at the rate of productivity growth, it would have been more than 22 per hour in 2021. My comment. It's unbelievable that the federal minimum wage is $7.25. Um, you know, I don't know who makes 7.25 in the US anymore. And surely if they do make 7.25, it's very unlikely that they have a one-bedroom apartment, because I think this same organization did a report a few years ago, and they discovered that for 725, out of the thousands of counties in the U.S., for 725, there's only like 20 counties out the thousands of U.S. counties. There's only 20 of them that you can live in with that wage, which basically underline shows how unrealistic or that wage can help people sustain themselves. Continuing, 30 states, DC, Puerto Rico, and over 50 counties and municipalities now have minimum wages higher than the federal minimum wage. Um, but even taking into account higher state and county minimum wages, the average minimum wage worker must work 96 hours per week, nearly two and a half full time jobs, to afford a two-bedroom rental, or 79 hours per week, two full time jobs, to afford a one-bedroom rental at the fair market rate. And these people who do work those abnormal amount of hours, you know, don't, won't really have any time for things like, cooking or cleaning or self-care or caring for their family. So it just goes to show, that the US is not getting better, is actually getting worse. And yet, many people still want to immigrate to the USA. I'll talk more about that a little later. So let's let's um, let's continue. The struggle to afford rental housing is widespread. The average monthly fair market rent for a one-bedroom or two-bedroom rental are 1,100 to about 1,350. However, the report shows these rents are much higher than what many renters can afford. 11 of the country's largest occupations, accounting for more than one-third of all workers, pay median wages that are less than the one-bedroom housing wage, which means that these jobs are paying less than 21, 25 an hour. Which, as a result, a lot of people, they have to, you know, maybe live with their parents, or maybe have roommates, and maybe it's not just one roommate. Maybe they have two or three other roommates, and that's not the American dream, That's not the American dream. And unfortunately, It's more of a American nightmare. All right, so again, this is from the National Low Income Housing Coalition. This is the 22 Out of Reach report. I will leave this report in the description so you can read it in its entirety. All right, so as we see here, it's not getting better for Americans. It is getting worse. Now, Americans are not only overwhelmed with, um, being unable to afford housing, but also I think they're overwhelmed with their jobs, and this is the reason why there are um, a lot of Americans still quitting their jobs. Historical highs. Here is an article by the World Economic Forum. Why are Americans still quitting their jobs? And it says that uh, 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 at 4.18 million, the number of Americans leaving their jobs still remains historically high. The Great Resignation saw tens of millions of Americans quit their jobs during the COVID pandemic. The pandemic has led many to reevaluate their priorities, expectations of working conditions, and pay, says a senior economist. So, so here it says here one main driver appears to be that many workers are no longer willing to put up with the pay and or working conditions they accepted prior to the pandemic. So a lot of people they want better working conditions. They want to get paid better. Um, they want opportunities for career advancement. And unfortunately, that is not happening. And this is the reason why many people are quitting their jobs. So if you're interested in that, I will also leave a link there. Let's continue to something I saw in LinkedIn. This is a LinkedIn workforce report. It says, forget quiet quitting. Many workers are still outright quitting their jobs as quickly as possible. So here it talks about um, the conventional wisdom. When people say that if you get a job, you shouldn't quit immediately. You should at least stay there for a year. It'll look good on your resume. It'll show people that you can at least hang around for a while. Well, they discuss that, and it says, should you resign yourself to that old school idea, or try your luck with the the tight labor market before you hit your 1 year anniversary. And as a result, it shows that in 2021, as the economy started rebounding and a great reshuffle took hold, workers left jobs in mass in search of everything from larger paychecks to more fulfilling or more flexible work. Now it seems the article says now it seems like U.S. workers are more comfortable with outright leaving their jobs quickly. The short tenure rate, which measures the fraction of positions that end after being held for less than a year, has increased across industries over the past couple of years. So it says still today workers are still leaving their roles more quickly uh, than last year, and it shows that it suggests that workers are still confident in the tight labor market and expect to land jobs elsewhere. And it says that still there are two available jobs for every person that wants one. So this is my comment. I think that is true in some cases because when you have these domestic migration patterns, right? Americans leaving New York, Americans leaving California, and they are going to other states to relocate. Well, as a result, those companies in California, New York, and these other places, they still need employees. So as a result, this is the reason why the remaining residents in California, New York, and these other areas, the remaining residents that still live there, they feel like, well, they have kind of an advantage, and they can maybe pick up one job, they don't like it. Okay, 3 months, they dump the job and maybe try a different job. So as a result there, uh, that that's where I believe it kind of makes uh, uh, the the correlation there with that there's two available jobs for every one person. I think that's what's causing it. So continuing, so workers are spending less time at each job. And also LinkedIn, they broke this down by industry. So unfortunately, many people are kind of quitting quickly in the arts and recreation industry, and technology and media industry. Those have been the top two highest. Now, conversely, the industries that are actually retaining uh, workers for over a year happens to be the retail and healthcare. Those are the top two that are retaining workers for over a year. So those types of jobs usually uh, those types of jobs, specifically healthcare. Usually, these are in-demand jobs. Management is likely to treat their employees better because this is a critical job. This is something where they have to keep people employed in order to it's a public hospital. It doesn't look good. It doesn't make any city look good if their hospitals don't have doctors or don't have nurses. So uh, I think with the healthcare, better wages, better benefits. I definitely think that, and also better, also maybe being treated better. I think that's the reason why healthcare has been having some of the highest retention. Retail was interesting. I did not expect that because many people usually quit those, you know, big box retail, fast food jobs quite quickly. So actually, I was surprised to see that this was one of the other industries having the highest retention of workers. So very interesting. All right, so that is something that I will include in uh, the description if you want to read more about that. Okay, so now one thing I'll say about about this quitting, is you know where are they going? Okay, so we talked about the people who are staying in these, you know, maybe let's say economically depressed cities, and in those cities, people, there's two jobs to every one person. If you have hundreds of jobs and that population is declining, well, it gives the liberty for many people to just start one job, work that job for maybe 2 months, drop that job, do another job. So really the power is in the employees, even among living in an economically depressed city. So that's one. Okay, but what about the people who are actually leaving? So well, the people who actually leave these um, very expensive areas to live, high taxes, maybe authoritarian type of areas. They're either going to states like maybe Texas or Florida or some other areas that tend to have maybe more favorable living conditions, working conditions, or they're actually going abroad, going to live in another country. And here, uh, taking a look at this article by Mike.com, it says why young people are getting the hell out of the US. So, um, so this article has is kind of has a focus on minorities, but uh, Uh, nowadays, I think many of us qualify as a minority, right? If you're disabled, you are a minority. If you are transgender, you are a minority, right? If you have if you have if you have if you have HIV or AIDS, you are a minority. So that's subjective, right? But I want to read a little bit about the article. So being a minority in the US is the most stressful thing I've ever done in my life, says the author. Growing up, everything from my cultural values to my appearance seemed to be at odds with the dominant culture. Anyone can have anxiety around not belonging, but being a person of color in America makes that anxiety inescapable. Okay, so my comment, person of color, nowadays this is kind of an inclusive term. So this doesn't only talk about Black people, but this talks about, for example, it could be indigenous people like Native Americans. It can be mixed race people. So this is kind of an inclusive term nowadays that they have used. Um, but I can definitely sympathize. Me being a person of color, African American person, that uh, being a minority, an ethnic minority can be stressful, and I think more people should be somewhat sympathetic, right? Because, and it's not your fault what race you're born. We have no control over that. But the truth is, sometimes when you grow up, if you are maybe, let's say, if you grow up, being of a different race, you might have more inherited opportunities than someone else of a different one. So you know, I'm not one of those people that blames everything. I can't do this because I'm this. I can't. I'm not that guy. But at the same time, I do think it's important for us to be sympathetic. To try to imagine walking in another person's shoes, because I think once we try and do that, we can at least try to imagine what it will be like to face those challenges. So, continuing with the article, it says, um, all right, okay. So that's exactly what many young people of color are doing. They're leaving the U.S. Uh, an increasing number of Gen Zs, millennials become expats. Many of them are taking to social media to discuss it. On TikTok, the hashtag moving abroad has more than 172 million views. And some Black and brown people talk about how moving out of the country was the best thing they've done for their mental health and try to persuade others to do the same. As we see here, uh, you know, lots of people have left the U.S. My comment for a better life. As we see here, people like Josephine Baker, Nina Simone, Tina Turner, all relocated to different countries, and they were all quite clear about why. Tina Turner, for example. For some of you who know, she was a very popular, you know, popular singer. I enjoy some of her songs. She told Larry King that she moved to Europe because she said my success was in another country. Europe has been very supportive of my music, she says. So um, that shows that it's very possible that you can succeed in a different country. You know, there's a lot of countries in the U.S. Well, I'm sorry, a lot of countries around the world that speak English, and maybe you fear that there may be a language barrier of learning a new language, but some of these countries speak English. A lot of people are bilingual there. Countries like some European countries, and a person like Tina Turner has proven can have success in another country. Now, of course, you don't have to be a singer. You know, I mean, there's other things you can do to be successful in another country. And a lot of, as I talked about on previous videos, a lot of Americans they come, they start businesses in new countries. You know, usually developing countries, and you know the challenges that they have had in the U.S. Those challenges don't even exist in these Latin American, Southeast Asian, or African countries. It's just it's night and day, and they actually become very successful in starting businesses in the developing world. So, uh, but basically, I don't have time to read the whole article, but it basically talks about overall, how young people are showing that they can have a better lifestyle abroad. Something I've talked about in many videos, and it's becoming a very popular online trend. As the article stated, there's 172 over 172 million views on TikTok about moving abroad. You know, LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, of course, that's talked about a lot too, and now even more so. I've been seeing more and more articles about people leaving the U.S. for many of the reasons that I have discussed. So I will go to Expat Insider. So Internations, they are the biggest organization for expats. People living abroad, and they have an Expat Insider that they release every single year. And this year, they rank the countries about which is the best to go to. And this year, they have listed Mexico as number one. So this is a part. This is a part of their list called friendly low cost destinations, losing none of their appeal. And it said that Mexico and Taiwan used to be very popular uh, and remains unchanged. Mexico, number one, receives outstanding results for the ease of settling in and personal finance. And it says reigning supreme in the former, it shows a top performance for every rating factor the index is based on. And again, I'm not going to go through the whole index. I will include that uh, in the description. You can read it in its entirety at your own leisure. But Mexico is number one with that. Well, who's number two? Indonesia. Okay, so Indonesia has a strong performance that's quite similar in many points. It also does very well with regards to personal finance, the ease of settling in. 73% of expats in Indonesia view the cost of living positively, compared to 45% worldwide. Another 77% are happy with their social life abroad, and it goes on. And number three, Taiwan. It says that Taiwan is the best rated destination for personal safety worldwide. Also lands in first place for health and well-being. It does not rank highly for personal finance or ease of settling in, but expats in Taiwan are happy enough. 84% describe the population as generally friendly, while 70% are satisfied with their financial situation. So I thought that was interesting. And, not surprised that Mexico is number one on that list. I think Mexico being close, so close to the US, like right across the border, definitely makes it definitely plays a factor, a favorable factor. So going to read a little more going to read a little more about Mexico, uh, about the settling in made easy there. So it talks about that, you know, Mexico delights with more than just food. And it says expats in Mexico are happy with their personal finance and the ease of settling in. In fact, the country comes first in local friendliness, finding friends, culture, and welcome subcategories. Expats describe the local residents as friendly, finding it easy to make friends among them. Also, the country narrowly missed out on a top 10 spot in the expat essentials, while 64% of expats found it easy to get a visa in order to move to Mexico. 53% struggle with the local bureaucracy. Yes, that's a challenge. I've stated that in a past uh, video, how sometimes you can go to one um, immigration office and they'll say the process is one way, and you go to a different state and the process is totally different. Yeah, that can be challenging. And it also applies in the U.S. It also applies in the Mexican consulates in the U.S. The income requirements are different. It can be a little confusing. In that case, I think the best way is probably to hire some help. But there's a lot of free online resources, YouTube videos that, if you want to figure it out yourself, you can do that and you won't have to pay anything. All right. So you can read more about that. I will leave a link in the description. All right. Well, that was fast. We are almost 33 minutes in. I will end the this live stream here. So I will add one more thing, and that is this is an opportunity. If you are living in the US, or even if you're living in Canada or UK, because maybe you're seeing some similar things, this is an opportunity to make the move abroad. You know, this is the opportunity. You know, Nowadays they're talking about this monkeypox, and who knows? We might enter another pandemic. And it might be more difficult to leave, as it was, not too long ago in the UK. People couldn't leave. In Australia, people couldn't leave. In New Zealand, people couldn't leave. So I think it's a great opportunity to make the move abroad. Maybe you might want to start with, a discovery trip for a week, but, you know, I think most people can handle a season. If especially if you have a remote job, I think most people can handle a season in another country. 3 months, go all in, and basically you can see for yourself if it's something you want to do. I know some people have full-time jobs and that's not possible. Well, in that case, maybe you can only do 1 or 2 weeks. But if you're able to, I would say strongly consider a full immersive experience for like a season, and then you can really have a good idea if you want to live there permanently. Some people go all in. That's what I did. I went to the first time I came to Mexico was in 2015. I stayed there for an entire year, and I had a positive experience. And this is why I came back, and now I'm a permanent resident. So um, that is something that I would suggest for you to consider. It's my intention for you to reach the finish line, and I have a playlist of the who, what, when, where, why, how of reaching the finish line. I highly recommend that you check that out. I would definitely include a link, maybe here or here, and you can watch that playlist of videos. You know, uh, a lot of a lot of people are will say, when this when this happens, I'll do this, or sometimes I feel like some people, they create a wall of excuses that prevents them from taking the next step. Okay, and the truth is, there might never be the perfect time, but there are good times. There will never be a perfect time, but there will be good times. And I suggest for you to, once you get a good opportunity, take it. Because as I said before, nowadays, with this uncertain world that we live in, and you have this whole, like, I saw on the news recently that so they passed a bill to prevent the government from shutting down, the U.S. government. And okay, $12 billion goes to another country for a war that doesn't affect most of us. The overwhelming majority of us doesn't affect us. 12 billion goes to that, while only 1 billion goes to help people. And many of these people here in the U.S. are starving, or about to get evicted, or can't pay their bills. You have to understand that that is the type of world that we're living in. Government only care about themselves. You know, they they want to charm you so you can vote for them, and once they get your vote, you are out of the equation. They just care about themselves. Okay, the best thing you can do for you is to start reaching the finish line. Okay,